Hey guys, Brian here. I just wrapped up a 6-day shoot shooting with my RED Komodo, and I wanted to give my overall impressions of what I thought about it so far. I've logged about 40 hours on the camera. I kind of just want to discuss what I liked about the camera, what I disliked, things that I could think use improving, and also any bugs that I ran into. If you could like and subscribe and let me know what kind of content you want to see, it would really help this channel out. We did shoot in a controlled environment, and this was just one camera out of 3, so I didn't feel comfortable shooting an entire project on a beta camera, but this was our B camera, and the A camera was a red helium. And so far from what I've seen, they match perfectly as you would expect from RED. I shot on beta firmware 1.2 during the shoot. In the middle of it, 1.2.1 came out, but again, I didn't want to change firmware mid-shoot just in case anything were to happen. What I liked about the camera was its image quality. I think the image quality is excellent, and while nowadays I actually think most cameras are good enough, the Komodo, it made it pretty easy to cut with our A camera. It made it easy to light, everything kind of just worked out, and I was able to not even think about how to expose or what I have to do to make the camera look good. The form factor is another thing that I really loved. So I was running on AC power for most of the shoot, but we had some top-down shoots where you just pop off everything, and then if you plug in AC power here, you can literally shoot with this setup. So all you really need to do is just slap a battery on and slap a lens on, and you can truly shoot anything on this camera. The way we rigged it out was very ergonomic. It was comfortable to shoot with. One of the biggest downsides right now is that there actually aren't a lot of accessories available still. I've been waiting for a proper gold mount plate, for weeks now, and nothing's truly been announced, but there's a couple things in the works, I know. So if you're running, these Canon BP batteries, you have to have separate accessory power if you're running a monitor or follow focus, and to me that's not really acceptable in building out a proper shooting rig. I'd like to consolidate everything to one battery so I don't have to carry around 3 different batteries. Going off the batteries, another thing that I really loved was how much battery power and how much battery life you really get from this camera. I think one of these BP 975s lasts about an hour and a half, so you're getting 3 hours of runtime on this pair of batteries. If you always have the battery on charge, you can get through a day with just 2 98 watt-hour batteries, or 4 of these guys. The other thing I really liked was the Wi-Fi control on this camera. I thought overall its functionality was great, but I think the app needs a lot of work. It's kind of confusing to use. The UI is rough at best, and there's a lot of room for improvement, but luckily the functionality of the app is there. And again, going with that, the app actually allows you to rig the camera remotely in a very small build. The other thing I really enjoyed was the Wi-Fi remote monitoring. Its functionality was just great. You would typically need a tear deck, then you have to figure out a power solution, figure out where to rig it on it, and it would just kind of grow. But doing our top-down setup, all you needed was just the body and a lens, and if you're running off AC power, that's kind of everything you need. It made it just very simple and streamlined, and just being able to run and stop from the app was great. Another thing that I liked was the autofocus, and just for some small, quick, steady cam or glide cam shots we had, it worked well. But another thing I didn't like about the camera is the autofocus. It probably works maybe 70% of the time. I wasn't shooting on this lens, but I was shooting with the Sigma Art 18 to 35 mil, and when I say 70% of the time it works, I'd say the shot works for 70% of the shot, and 30% of the time it just kind of focuses to somewhere random or just misses the mark. I think autofocus is something that will be continually tweaked throughout the lifetime of the Komodo. The way you autofocus, there's just kind of a small square on the screen, and if the mark is just off of that, it'll focus to somewhere that you don't want it to focus. The other thing that I didn't like with the autofocus was you could only see the autofocus square on this top screen. It wouldn't send to my external monitor, which is what I was operating off of. And if I were to use it, I would have to take my eyes off the operating monitor, look down, and hope it's in the spot. And since I was doing a dolly sliding shot, it just did not work out. So I ended up ditching the autofocus altogether just because it just wasn't that functional. The other thing I didn't like is the app, and quite honestly, the app, its functionality is there, but its UI is just rough. You know, nothing is labeled, the pictures don't really make any sense of what they're supposed to mean. It took forever trying to figure out how to kind of punch into your shot to go full screen, and then with depending on the orientation of your phone, then the image just continually flips, and it's kind of frustrating to use. And when it flips, it resets everything, so you have to do this awkward pinch zoom, which works maybe like 30% of the time. You can have a secondary overlay, but it just seemed kind of random how it worked, and it didn't really work that well. Though you don't have to use it often, it's incredibly difficult to type on this touchscreen, and I'll show you that when you're trying to type in the Wi-Fi information, it's kind of difficult to accurately press the letters on the screen. I'm not sure if it's an angle thing or just the tiny keyboard, but maybe they can adjust the keyboard size or the spacing between the letters. And while they're still continually tweaking the compression ratios on the camera does use a ton of data, but that's to be expected when you're sending out a 6K image. I think in longer workflows in the future, I would probably use ProRes more because it does save you a little bit more space if you're doing long interviews like we were doing without much loss to quality. You know, you're never mastering or exporting to 6K, so 4K is all you really need for now. Another thing with the Komodo is that there is a little bit of play between the RF and EF mount to the Komodo body. And it's not like the PL system where when you twist it, it actually compresses the two different bodies together, but it's a simple, just kind of twist system into a lock. Now, one thing that I'm getting in the future is the Kipper tie EF mount, and that will give a secondary mounting point on the bottom to the body, which will have a chin strap here. And that just gives more rigidity to the mount to body interface. And then the EF portion of the mount will be a positive lock system similar to PL and similar to the current DSMC2 RED systems. So during those 6 days of shooting, we did run into a couple bugs with the camera as expected. One of the things that happened was I changed from 5K to 6K on the camera, and the screen turned blue. Like, the image was just kind of blue and gray, and then there was a double image on the right side. While that happened on the top of the Komodo, it didn't send out to my small HD monitor, which was what I was primarily monitoring off of. So I quickly just power cycled the camera, turned it back on, and it was fixed. And that is a known issue by RED. They actually reached out to me, and I posted in the RED group, and dozens of other people had the same issue. So hopefully they can get that fixed, and I didn't actually check to see if I recorded on that if it would bake into the image, but I would assume not because my SDI feed was clean. And then one other bug that I had during the shoot was I was off AC power quickly and I bumped the batteries. I kind of forget how, I just kind of maybe wiggled it like that. And the camera did shut off, and when I tried to turn it back on, it was kind of awkward, so I had to wait for it to like fully turn on and then re-power cycle it again. But, you know, I will say that I am using third-party batteries that aren't supported by the Komodo. And for me, this is just a temporary solution until I could get my gold mount batteries, but, you know, I think it's worth noting that people have run into issues where if they bump the batteries, the camera does shut off. So if you're doing anything sports related, I would suggest making sure you go for authentic Canon batteries and just watch how you kind of secure them, because as you can see, with these batteries, there is play between them. And that's not necessarily a great thing. But those were really just the two bugs that I ran into in the 6 days of shooting. I mean, overall, the build quality of this camera is excellent as well. It's just very well made, very tight, very compact, and everything is solid, minus the RF mount, but that's also been noted by RED because, you know, this is plastic. But yeah, that was just a quick overview and my general impressions after 40 hours of shooting with the camera. Let me know in the comments if you have any other questions, and I would be happy to answer them for you. And if you could like and subscribe and let me know what kind of content you want to see, it would really help this channel out, and I would really appreciate it.